Welcome. This month's meetup was a very interesting discussion, and we talked about language and peace building in relation to media. It was a good group of people, and we had a very fascinating discussion with lots of different experiences. We talked about how language and media affects peace and peace building. The role of language in media is really pivotal. And one example given was about the recent issue of water being released into the ocean that had been part of the Fukushima nuclear plant. And the way that in Japanese media, the media had initially talked about it as polluted water, and there had been some resistance. But when the media switched to talking about it as processed water, then people found that it was acceptable to do. So the role of media in that shaping people's perception was really pivotal. We also talked about how media these days is not just reporters and journalists. Everyone can be creators and share their news and information with others. So it's even more critical that everyone is aware of the role of peace and language in media, and that there should be some guidelines and some education and some training for people to be able to understand the impact of their language. We acknowledge that social media platforms are working at this. One example was with Facebook in Myanmar in 2018. Once it became clear that the Rohingya were being targeted and Facebook was being used as one way to draw people's support for that, Facebook did take some action. Also in 2021, Trump's provocative speech on Twitter resulted in his account being suspended. So we acknowledge that platforms are working at this. There is a role for them, but that they need to work more, that there needs to be a more careful attention to how language and the way that people are speaking and using language on social media can result in real harm done to people. And we noted too that even when disinformation is being shared on social media, it's easy for people to just ignore it or pass by it. But some people in our circles, we acknowledge, do push back, and that they resist and ask people to remove it or delete it. So that can be a responsibility of the users as well. We also talked about how we relate to each other through language, and how sometimes on social media there's a pressure to respond quickly, and how does that pressure impact our relationships. And in that pressure, we need to be very careful about the tone of language. If we can come across in a different way than we intend, maybe we sound angry, maybe there could be major miscommunication or misunderstandings about how each other's feels, and result in some real conflict between friends even. We also talked about the choice that we can make in using sensitive language, and that being like disability sensitive or gender sensitive, and just using that language itself can help build awareness, because people see us using that and then can think about what that might mean. There's a video that I shared from UNESCO that's looking at social media for peace, and it's an interesting video to check out if you get the chance. And the questions about what kind of conversations are happening, who can help connect different conversations. And we talked about the role of younger generations in doing that, that the young activists, someone like Greta Thunberg, are speaking out and being vocal and helping to connect their views and speak to the older generations to draw awareness to issues that are there. We also looked at peace journalism and talked about our experiences or knowledge about this. It was interesting to note the connections between these five principles of peace journalism and international development efforts, and that there could be some good synergy there if we have peace journalism working together with international development and aid, and it could be a very positive impact on situations. And we found that there's a lot of media sources that are trying to do things differently. One example that was shared was the New Internationalists that tries to give a different perspective on news. We also talked about the Big Issue, which I think started in the UK, but is also active in Japan and Korea. And it promotes positive news, but also the vendors who sell the magazine are people who are experiencing homelessness or houselessness. And the selling of the magazine itself can promote change in societies and help people to have employment and work towards changing their lives. So that was a good example that was shared. And then we also talked a little bit about Good News Network or other positive news sites like that. The solutions journalism that's out there also connects well with peace journalism, and how we can access this media and try to support this kind of media. Our final topic of conversation was about the questions of sustainability and what kinds of economic models can support alternative and independent media. And this is an important thing to think about when we are thinking about media and change. So this was some of our conversation from this month's meetup. Please join us on the English Collective Facebook group, and there you can get first chance to get the link for next month. You can have the meetup notes, and we can keep the conversation going with other participants. And check us out on Facebook at the Language for Peace page run by Collective Joy Consulting. Next month, our topic of conversation is language and small C cultures. So we're thinking about how culture shapes relationships and conflict, even when we think we're speaking the same language. How does language influence this, even among similar groups of people? So you can bring your stories and experiences. Looking forward to seeing you next month.